Hey, everybody, welcome back for part 2 of my plant-based family interviews. We had the pleasure of chatting with my mom last week, and we are chatting with my sister this week. Sarah Elizabeth has been on the podcast before. I just looked, and it was August of 2021. So coming up on I can't even believe I'm saying that. Coming up on a year ago that we sat here and chatted, and we're going to do it again. But this time we're going to talk all about what the transition to eating a plant-based diet or following a vegan lifestyle has been like for Sarah. Because if you listened last week, you know that we're hitting 5 years. Our whole family, mom and dad and me and Sarah, are hitting 5 years plant-based at the end of June, beginning of July of this year, 2022. So to celebrate that, I want you to hear their stories. I want you not just to hear my perspective on what it's like to eat plant-based food, but what it was like for them, some things that they've learned, some pointers that they have for you, and appropriate to do it this week because it also happens to be Sarah's birthday week. So happy birthday week, Sarah, and here we go. Hey there, and welcome to Be Well With Steph, the podcast. This is the show for you if you believe that personal wellness can be an actively pursued goal, and you're ready to tackle building healthier daily habits with a little bit of good humor, a little bit of grace, and a little bit of coffee. I'm Steph. I'm your wellness and nutrition coach and your host, and I want to make it really clear. You're not expected to be or live perfectly here. Lord knows I don't. After battling diet culture and then learning to navigate the world of wellness culture myself, I know a few things are true. 1, it doesn't have to be complicated to be effective. 2, you are capable of creating a lifestyle you love. And 3, you have everything you need to start doing that today inside your own beautiful self. On this show, we'll talk about nourishing yourself, moving your body, getting a good night's sleep, caring for your mental health, being in community, and maintaining day-to-day practices that make you feel good. I'm here to help empower you to create and maintain a lifestyle of wellness that gives you the strength, energy, and confidence to go after your wildest dreams. Good morning, Sarah.
Oh, hi.
How are you today?
I'm sleepy.
Dragged Sarah up to record early with me before work starts. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Good. I'm glad. So I'm excited to do this. It's going to be kind of different questions than the stuff that we talked about when we chatted last year. So I'm going to ask you actually the same series of questions that I asked Mom last week and that I'm going to ask Dad for next week. So I think it'll be fun to kind of put answers side by side and see what different experiences were like. So when I first came to you, and it was, I don't know the year, so never mind, 5 years ago, 2017. So when I first came to you, June 2017, and I said, so I watched this crazy documentary. I think I'm going to stop eating animal products. Do you remember what you thought at the time?
It didn't seem too crazy to me, I don't think, because as you said in your last episode, Mom had been vegetarian for my entire life. And there had been a few years prior to that where I had also been completely dairy-free. And then when you saw the documentary, the first thing was there are some things you can't unsee.
Yep.
So that between that and I was having some health issues at the time between digestion and problems with my neck and shoulder to the point where I was a breath away from giving up a music career because I couldn't hold a guitar anymore. And I was like, you know what? We'll try it. And there was no part of me that thought it was going to stick, but I also didn't think it was going to be hard at all.
Yeah, I agree. I also feel like I didn't know if it would be forever, right? It was just like easy enough to try, worth a shot. Everything's worth a shot. And I think we, like you said, we'd kind of made some dietary adjustments or had been trying different things. And especially like if you, and those of you listening know too, like if you struggle with digestion, you try some stuff to figure out what's going to make it better, right?
So my digestion and the pain in my body And the idea of giving up playing guitar seemed a lot harder than not eating meat. Like, big deal.
I guess that's a big comparison, right? Like if you felt like at the time your options were give up music or give up meat, that was like a no-brainer.
Right.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. So if you had to give any kind of label to the way you eat or description to the way you eat, what would that be?
Intention or reality?
Both.
Intention is whole foods, plant-based.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe at least 50% of the time, I would say I do a pretty good job at whole foods, plant-based.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, 99% vegan, except
Mm-hmm.
for honey, which I do eat.
Mm-hmm.
So completely vegan and maybe 50 to 75% whole foods, plant-based.
There you go.
With intention to be as fully whole foods, plant-based as I can, but I run a strange schedule, have weird appetite things, and just do the best I can.
Yeah. It's literally all about doing the best you can. I didn't know what your answer was going to be to this. I didn't know if you were going to say plant-based or if you were going to say vegan. I go back and forth. Like I use both terms and sometimes I use them interchangeably. Most of the time, I think when I talk about the way that I eat, I talk about plant-based, right? And I try to do that with clients as well, right? Like we try to distinguish the difference between what it is to eat a plant-based diet and what it is to be a vegan person, right?
Right.
Those
To
are
me,
not the same.
vegan is like an identity and a lifestyle. And plant-based more describes the way I try my best to eat.
Right. Because you could be vegan. You could say like I'm vegan, ethically vegan, or identity is vegan, but I haven't eten a vegetable this week. Right. So
I never go a whole week without eating
no,
vegetables.
I'm not saying you could say that. I'm saying like a person could say that. A person could say that and still have been vegan just because they didn't consume. And we talk a lot about around here anyway, about the intentionality. Like you said, vegan is what you are not eating. Plant-based is what you are trying to eat.
Right.
So in the beginning of making this switch and adopting a plant-based diet, did anything feel hard?
No. It was an adjustment, I'd say, only really having to read labels more carefully and ask other people what was in their food.
Right.
That's like a 2-second inconvenience. The rest is not hard.
Yeah. Beyond that.
It's not hard, people.
And I swear the intention of these podcasts was not to just convince people to be plant-based, but I think it's worth noting that Mom said the same thing, right? And you guys are two different people at two different places in your life and two different eating styles and whatever. And still both of you were like, no, it didn't really feel hard.
And to me, committing to being fully plant-based when I'm a kind of always on the run person, I'm terrible at planning ahead. So to me, committing to fully whole foods plant-based is sometimes more challenging, not because I don't want to eat that way, just because of who I am as a person. And it makes it hard to fully commit to that sometimes. Being vegan is not hard. Just don't eat the animal products.
Right.
It's
There's a
not hard.
substitute for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And I think it is the learning curve of checking the label, asking the people, looking at the menu ahead. There's like tweaks that you make, but you kind of make them on the fly. And I guess it's perspective, right? Because it's like we're choosing to eat fake chicken nuggets over regular chicken nuggets, right? None of regular chicken nuggets, not a whole lot of chicken in there anyway, right? So if we like kind of look at those comparison games, right? It's like you're just trading one thing for another. Nutritionally, we can make some more investments. And like you said, it can be more time consuming or take more thought if you are planning out whole plant food meals, right? There's maybe more of a learning curve. But I think from day-to-day basis, you didn't find it hard.
No.
Okay. So did you find it helpful? So the next question was, were there any surprising benefits from eating a plant-based diet?
My digestion is forever changed. Still not great. It's just chronic digestion issues that are never probably going to completely go away. But I understand better just by paying attention to what I'm eating, what my triggers are. And then, of course, removing animal fats from my diet was very helpful in my digestion.
Mm-hmm.
But I mentioned I was having trouble with my neck and shoulder, and I had been through 13 physical therapy sessions, several different medications, anti-inflammatories, muscle relaxants, like hefty
Chiropractic.
yeah. And none of it worked.
Right.
And I could barely use my left hand. I could not raise my left arm above my head. I couldn't bend my head to my shoulder. I was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Took 2 weeks of going cold turkey vegan. And I woke up one morning and the pain was gone. I could feel my left hand and I raised my arm above my head.
Yeah.
I said, and it's been fine ever since.
Yeah. That's the
completely
crazy part.
Fine. It was like a year of this. And after 2 weeks of cutting out animal fat from my diet, my body reduced the inflammation and I'm fine. I have a music career 5 years later.
Yeah. And you probably play more now than you did then too, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot more. And I will never forget you walking in the door and being like, hey, look what I can do. And just like raising your arm above your head toward the ceiling. Like, look at this cool thing. Like, all right. That was unexpected.
Right. So when I went vegan cold turkey, I was like, okay, cool. I'll try it. It probably won't last. Who could go that long without pulled pork?
Right. Yeah.
And then I didn't really miss pulled pork because there's pulled jackfruit.
Mm-hmm.
And also I could raise my arm above my head.
Mm-hmm.
So why would I go back?
Yeah.
I'll never go back.
I was going to ask that question. We'll jump ahead there for a second. The question was, do you ever think that you'll change the way you eat again?
No. Why would I?
Would you think, I don't think you would go back to eating animal product. Do you think you'd ever make other modifications or changes?
If something came up that seemed as clear of a path as this did, or clear reason, something other dietary adjustment I needed to make, then sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Otherwise, pretty much the same. So if people are interested in starting a vegan or plant-based diet, part of the reason I do what I do is because I don't want people to have to do this sort of thing alone, right? We didn't do it alone. We all did it together. It made it a little bit easier. I don't want other people to have to journey through that alone. I want to offer them some tips or advice. So are there any tips or advice that you could offer people who are interested in being vegan or plant-based?
First would be that tofu is your best friend. Buy yourself a tofu press. Learn 6 different ways to season tofu and eat tofu every day.
Great. That's a staple. It's a hard staple.
Keep snacks in your car. And that one's very simple. Literally just keep snacks in your car because sometimes you're going to be hungry. There's not going to be food that you can or want to eat. And because that's also the case, I think you guys said this in the last time, don't worry about being perfect. Commit to it. Yes, sure. But sometimes if you're starving and all that's there is your friend's pizza, pull the cheese off and eat the crust.
Yeah. You don't have to be
You
perfect,
don't have to
right?
be worried that the cheese was touching it or there might be a couple little shreds of cheese left on it. Pulling the cheese off is perfectly fine. Not eating that piece of pizza didn't stop that cow from being tortured.
Yeah.
It's not going to spike your cholesterol by the cheese touching it. Whatever your reasons are, don't let yourself be hungry. Don't deprive yourself of a delicious piece of pizza crust. Just don't worry about being perfect. Do what feels good.
Yeah. I think people do worry about that a lot because they're like, if I can't do it perfectly, then I'm not sure what my next move would be, right? And we talk a lot too on here about being able to manage your own body cues and manage your own hunger and stuff by honoring when it happens. So like if you are in a situation where you're hungry, you do the best that you can with what you have where you are, and that will help you to make the next best choice that you want to make, as opposed to just like skipping something completely and not being able to make great choices or have energy, or eating something you wish you hadn't that disagrees with your body or that you get frustrated about later. You just kind of got to roll with the punches.
For sure.
What kind of snacks do you keep in your car?
Depends on the week. It could be some granola, some dried fruit. Big fan of peanut butter pretzels.
Yep. Excellent. You got like nutrient dense and calorie dense stuff, right?
Yes.
So that you're going to have the energy. Yep. So is there anything else you've learned or experienced in the last 5-ish years that you'd want to share?
People can be really mean about you being vegan.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's a sad thing.
That's a them problem. and understand that if it makes you feel good, then the fact that people have the gall to be mean about it or make little digs about it or try and force you to eat food you're not comfortable with, that's a them problem.
Yeah. That's a really hard one for a lot of people.
I know people who have been vegan or even vegetarian and given it up because they couldn't handle all the comments people were making or the people not being accommodating to the way that they're eating. And that's just not our problem. Our problem is what feels good and what tastes good and what makes sense to you.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And that's why I ended up doing that training a while ago. And I'll probably bring it back again for this summer, it's nobody else's business what's on your plate kind of thing. Because people always have something to say, right? And they're going to say one thing if you do one thing, they're going to say something else if you do another thing. You're right. That's kind of on them. And also, I think it's important to remember that we didn't always eat this way.
Right.
So there is a cushion. Like, if someone had told you 10 years ago, well, you're going to be vegan for the rest of your life eventually, probably would have laughed and grabbed another chicken wing, right? Like that we're all on kind of our own journey with this sort of thing and our own self-discovery. And sometimes people make a comment, it's just in your head, checking yourself and saying, this is because they don't understand yet.
And I think that would be my part two, is not worrying about what people are saying to you, but also mind your own business and don't be that kind of vegan that's constantly trying to convince other people to eat a certain way. Lead by example, not by shoving it in people's faces, because that doesn't help anything.
Absolutely. Like, I always think about it. I always thought about it similarly to like religion, or the way that people talk about religion, right? Like, if you want to, tell someone that they should convert is different than just simply living out what you believe and letting people, follow your example or model or be like, hey, I wonder what has them feeling so good. I wonder what has them feeling so happy or energized or comfortable or confident. I want what they have. That's a much different approach than you should do this, right? And so I want to be clear also that that's not what we're doing here.
No. No. And just, I said in the beginning that when saying the difference between vegan and plant-based, that vegan is more of an identity with parameters, obviously, but you just compared it to a religion. And same thing where it's a very personal thing. It's not just about the way that you eat. To me, it feels like a very spiritual part of my identity. And just like, there's no perfect Christian, there's no perfect Jew, there's no perfect Muslim, there's no perfect vegan, but it's still a very spiritual part of your identity.
Yeah. Which
is why it does bother me when people without fail make digs or whatever. But just like anything else, that's their problem.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And I think because veganism is so rooted in like compassion and empathy, right? Like, that's the place that it comes from. And the plant-based diet portion of that, I think, is partly compassion to other living things. But I think adopting a plant-based diet is compassion to yourself, right? So that's kind of the difference, I think, is being vegan is being compassionate for animals, for the environment, for others, right? Being plant-based is being compassionate for yourself and for honoring what is going to serve your body and serve your health and make you feel good and live the best life that you can live. So then you can stick up for those other things and other causes that are important, right? But if you feel like crap, you're not gonna be able to do that.
We could do a whole episode sometime on the spirituality of veganism.
Ooh. Okay. Note to self. Note to selves. So what are your 3 current favorite foods?
Tofu. Can those be my second and third?
Tofu fried, right. Tofu scrambled.
Yeah. So definitely my 3 main food groups are probably tofu, pasta. Trying to think of the third staple in my diet other than tofu and pasta.
Granola.
Right. Yeah, cereal, granola.
You can pick a fun one if you want. Do you have like a favorite, like a fun food? Like if I was like, hey, I'm going to Trader Joe's Thursday. Hey, I'm going to Trader Joe's Thursday. What would you be like? Yeah, get.
Well, we already mentioned nuggets.
Yeah.
And we really like those spinach raviolis. But again, that's pasta.
Yeah, right.
I'm all about pasta and tofu, really.
Yeah.
To be honest.
That's funny. Tofu was in Mom's top foods too.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what Dad says.
For the record, I do eat fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. Right. Except not bananas.
I don't eat bananas.
Yeah. But
they hurt me.
Other fruits and vegetables, yes. When she makes pasta, Sara is known for
loaded
putting
with veggies.
Yeah.
Garlic, can that be my third staple?
Sure.
Tofu, pasta, and garlic?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In any combination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. All right. Until next time when we talk with Dad.
Oh boy.
About his experience completely putting his diet on its head. And I have a feeling that he might get into a little bit of kind of navigating that from a social perspective too. If you're listening to this, Dad, before that conversation, you don't have to. It's just a thought. And I think that's going to be a really interesting story. But the whole point of sharing these stories is that it's not just my perspective. We're all different people, different walks of life, different preferences. And I want you to feel like it is okay for you to try something new. It is okay for you to step outside your comfort zone to say, just because that is how I always ate, or just because that is what I always believed, when I get new information or when I get new ideas, I can do something different. I can believe something different based off this new information or this new idea that I have. We're just going to keep it real and keep our options open here and keep doing the best that we can to support our health and well-being and the health of other people. Okay, so is there anything else that you would want to say to the people before we wrap up for today?
I am not just a hilarious vegan. I am also a musician, an artist, and I'm a singer-songwriter. And I can't be on a public platform and not promote that.
Yeah.
I just dropped a couple songs last week with my band Tuesday Night. So can we link to that, since people are used to hearing the theme song and whatnot? And
yeah, we'll definitely throw some of Sara Elizabeth and her projects in the show notes so you can check her out. You can follow her on Instagram, all that good stuff. She's also the editor on this podcast. She does all the editing for me. And it's her song that you hear featured, Be Well, on the intro and outro and all that jazz. So we've definitely borrowed a lot from her for this podcast. So thank you for sharing your time and talents and energies and efforts with Team Be Well with Steph.
Glad to.
Thank you so much for listening to Be Well with Steph, the podcast. When there are a million things that you could be doing, I appreciate your choosing to hang out here. And I am proud of you for continuing to work on your own wellness journey. I invite you to head over to BeWellWithSteph.com for the details from this episode, my blog, upcoming events, and lots of other resources. If you enjoyed today's show, I'd love to hear from you. I'm Be Well With Steph everywhere you like to hang out on social media, so come on over and say hi. Until next time, my friends, be well.
I will be well, I will be well, I will be well.